Howdy folks, Clint Rawls with Delta Valves and Controls. Coming to you today because I got some customers in the field that happen to have some V100 control valves with 1052 actuators on them that are currently fail open, and they need to convert them to fail closed. The manual is very complicated to try and read and understand. The manual is really, whether it's Fisher, CVS, Dynaflow, doesn't matter. The manual is taking you from a starting point when you're assembling and stabbing the actuator, and it really does not relate to a fail position change in the field. So I'm not much of a writer, so I just want to make this video because I know most of the guys out in the field, they're just like me. They don't want to read a whole bunch of stuff. They just want to, watch a YouTube video and just go step by step. I mean, it's all mechanical. Anyone with a mechanical mind can figure it out, but it definitely, hopefully this video will eliminate a lot of trial and error for you. But anyhow, as you can see, this valve currently has a pneumatic positioner. The one in the field is the exact same positioner, but it's an electro pneumatic. It's got an I2P module mounted on it. Doesn't really matter, everything's the same, besides that one takes a 4 to 20 signal, this one takes a 6 to 30 pneumatic signal. Anyhow, I can tell you the first things first. Tools you're going to need is all your wrenches. You're going to need a milliamp source if you're going to be calibrating it. You're going to need to have possibly a pneumatic regulator with a adjustment so that you can manually stroke this actuator. I typically like to disconnect this tubing, hook my regulator straight into it so that I can manually manipulate it, because there's going to be a lot of manipulating. You got to put it at mid-stroke, adjust some things, back it off. I would highly advise to try that. I wouldn't suggest trying to do it without it. Anyhow, so we'll get started. First things first, for me, I pull the tubing off, basically disconnect everything from the instrument so that whenever you remove this outer cover, the instrument and everything comes off in one piece. I'm going to start doing that right now. Started backwards. And pull the tubing. Of course, safety reasons, you want to disconnect your air supply. Pull these 4 bolts. I only got 2 in this one. This is an old beat up valve. It's been kicking around here for years. Not the prettiest. I'd have preferred a new one to do a video with, but oh well, this is what I got. Now that I got all 4 of those bolts, all we got to do is slide this off. See, it comes off. It's a splined hub bearing. We're just going to put this to the side. All right, so I'm going to bring you guys around so you can kind of see what's going on here. So this is the V-ball. I hate this phone stand. This is the V-ball. Basically, right now, like I said, it's in the open position. What we're going to have to do is I'm going to have to loosen the clamp bolt on this lever. So this is a linear actuator. Comes down, pushes this lever, converting linear motion to rotary motion. So I have to loosen this clamp bolt on this lever, and then this should slide freely and allow us to remove the actuator. So now that that's loose, I can actually move that lever. And so, with that being said, on the exact opposite side, you've got the same 4 bolts here. So what we're going to do, we're going to pull those bolts, and that will remove the actuator. Basically, before you slide this off, I want you to see there's 4 dots around this lever. And there's 1 dot on the shaft. And that 1 dot on the shaft lines up with 1 dot on the lever. So basically, the geometry of this thing is that if you, no matter what orientation you put this actuator in, if in the failed position you line those 2 dots up, it should stroke exactly 90 degrees. So keep that in mind whenever you put it back together. But for right now, I should be good to come apart on this one. All right, so lift this up out of our way. Okay, so basically what we have here is, since we're going to go from fail open to fail closed on a V-ball of any kind, you don't want the ball. So say this is the ball and it rotates quarter turn only. So say now it's closed, now it's open. That's good, the ball's rolling to the top of the piping process. What you don't want is for the valve to be in the closed position, and when you orientate the actuator, it rotates the ball down here into the process. Because what will happen is debris and things can build up at the bottom, and it'll scar the ball and cause lots of issues with you riding the ball back and forth into that. I mean, how many times have you seen a weld-a-let where the welders go in and they cut out a chunk of pipe this big? Guess where it's going to stick? It's going to stick right where that ball is going to rotate, or a bolt, or welding rods, or anything. I've pulled a lot of crazy things out of control valves, and if you're an experienced field guy, I'm sure you've seen the same thing plenty of times. Anyhow, so we always want the ball to be from the closed to the top, or from the top to the closed, never from the bottom to closed, or from closed to the bottom. So in order to do that in this setup, the rotation has to change directions. Like right now, you can see the offset of the linear actuator, and then here's the transfer case where it converts it to rotary. So right now you can see that in the failed position, it's right here, but when you stroke it, it's going to go counterclockwise. Well, changing this valve to fail closed, so the ball would be here. If we stabbed it right back on, then when it goes open, the ball would roll to the bottom. We don't want that. We want that ball to roll up, so we need this actuator to stroke clockwise. The way we do that, simply spin it 180 degrees. So now, when you stroke it, the actuator strokes clockwise. So in the closed position, open. So anyhow, we'll get to that in just a second. Let's see here. So what I would do now in this instance, so a lot of times I would take the lever out and use the lever to rotate the ball, but in this instance I'm going to use a rag and a pair of channel locks, and I'm going to try not to mangle the splines on that shaft, because once you do, it's very hard to get that lever to slide on. It's a very snug fit. There's not a lot of room for any play or dents or dings, so you don't want to mess it up. So now I'm grabbing this on the spline about as far back as I can get it. That way, if damage does occur, at least it's way back there and it's not gonna fight me from the very front. Like if I grab it right here on the end of the spline and mess it up, I'm gonna have a really bad time trying to get that thing all the way on. So now what we're wanting to do is we want to rotate this thing a quarter turn, and basically going from fail open, we want to rotate the ball to the closed position. And when doing this, see the way that slipped just now? That's not good. So we want to squeeze tight enough that it doesn't slip, but not so tight that it mangles it. Oh, that's horrible. All right. Yeah, no, we're good. So now from the back side of the ball, you don't want, you'll see the ball and you'll see the seat on both sides of the V's of the ball. And what you want to do is you want to make sure it's even. So look up in there with the flashlight, make sure it's even so that you know that ball is lined up exactly even on that seat. It's pretty self-explanatory. So now that we've got it in the closed position, we want to slide it back together. Notice your regulator is on this side now. Yeah, means you're probably going to have to rerun some tubing. So that's about even there. All right. Maybe not. Shoot, I think I got a tooth off. So my dot is one dot off on the spline. So, gotta redo it. Alright, so now, that took a little bit of fighting, and that's what it is almost every time. It's a little bit of a struggle. So now what I need to do, I need to get a couple of bolts in and get this thing positioned right. And so let me do that. So I didn't tighten up the other side because you tighten up that other side, it still has a little rock, a little play. You still need to get bolts aligned. So like this one, I'm having to pick up on a little bit, just to rock it a slight bit. Okay, and the bottom one's pretty good. So. All right, so now we can tighten them up. All right, so now that that's tight, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in here with my regulator. You need to make sure that this lever is in the center of the housing, because if not, that lever bolt can catch the housing, and when it catches that housing, it's not good. It breaks things. So now I've got a gap on both sides. I'm gonna get my wrench, tighten it up. All right, tightening that lever is probably one of the most important things you're gonna do here. If you don't tighten that lever, this valve will more than likely fail in the field due to that lever being able to rock back and forth when it's under torque or thrust. And when it jumps to one side, it'll catch that housing and snap, everything shuts down. So very important, tighten that jam bolt. All right, so now that I got that tightened, what I like to do, stroke it slowly, don't overpressure it, no more than 35 to 40 pounds. And I'm just gonna stroke it until it hits the stop in the bottom side of the actuator. There's no physical stop that you can see externally. It will just it has stop bolts in the actuator, like right there, just hit the stop. Now I'm gonna go back here, I'm gonna look through the valve and verify that that ball has gone from closed to open and is pretty good and level. So now you can see up inside this valve, you can see the valve is a little washed out, but doesn't matter, it's for demo purpose. That ball is as level as they come. So that is perfect. So the rotation and the fail position of the valve is now corrected. Now I can let all this air off. Wait for this thing to bleed back to the closed position. And now we're going to go ahead and remove our regulator. These regulators just are 5/16 bolts, so a 1/2 inch wrench. guys out in the field, if that inlet for this regulator is plumbed in, I guess you're gonna have to, you already know by now, but you have to shut off the main supply coming into this regulator. So now you're just gonna take this regulator and mount it on the opposite side of the actuator. Good enough. Okay, so next thing's next. On your positioner, now we got to reinstall this tail cover with the positioner on it. But the thing about it is, now this is going to rotate the opposite direction. So what I do is I will by hand roll that cam up so that whenever I install it, which this is completely upside down, sorry about that, roll that cam up so that whenever I install it, when it strokes, like right now, it's going to stroke clockwise. It's going to stroke this direction. So I rotate that cam and that shaft so that it's going the right direction. And then just slide it on. And let's see here. All right, so I only had 2 bolts on this, just because, like I said, this is basically a scrap valve, old valve, wore out, blown out, been in the field a long time. So, all right, so now what we have is the positioner's reinstalled and it's in the failed close position. So the next major thing to do would be to rerun your tubing. I'm going to do it a little backwards, but it would be to rerun your tubing and change this cam. So the cam is 2-sided. One side, which is RA, is for basically reverse acting. Whenever it says reverse acting, it basically means it's stroking counterclockwise. We want it on DA, direct acting. So that means it strokes clockwise. So it goes from the failed position to the open position clockwise. We consider that DA, direct acting. Without doing that, this instrument will not calibrate, will not function. It'll basically go wide open once you get it moving, and it'll never come back because the ramp of the cam lobe is going the wrong direction. So without further ado, let me get a 10mm wrench. A lot of these positioners will have a little screwed on indicator, rotation indicator or degree angle indicator. Now's the time to take it off. You almost can't get to this nut with it on there. So I wouldn't drop any of these washers or lock washers and just slide this puppy off. So, like I said, it was on RA. We want it on DA. Flat washer first, lock washer second, and then the nut. So for me, I just kind of start it down here and then pop it onto the lobe. What you're trying to do is there's a notch on there where it says 0 degree angle. You want to line that notch up with the roller or with this divot right here. It's pretty self-explanatory when you're looking at it up close. All right, So you want to make sure it's snug enough that it's not going to come loose. It does have a lock washer, so as long as you get it snug, it should not ever go anywhere. All right, so our fail position change is done. Now I'm going to run some tubing. All right, guys, I'm back. So this is a very makeshift setup calibration. It's too hard to get it to where y'all can see the gauge, but you know, the essentials of this is, here's your span. You can see it's got a minus and a plus. So this really should not have to be messed with much because it was already in calibration, just the wrong action. So I would highly suggest not messing with this until you have to. This knob right here is your 0. You can just adjust it with your finger. It's very easy. So I would set this, since yours is electro-pneumatic, mine is pneumatic, my initial input is 6 PSI, yours will be 4 milliamps. What I would do is set it initially to 4 milliamps. I'm going to set mine to 6 PSI. All right, so I can hear the positioners trying to work. So by messing with this flapper, you can kind of see which way you need to put tension by rotating this knob. So I need to pull that flapper back to me. So in order to do that, I'm going to screw this knob in. Like right now, the valve is stroking. All right, so now I've got it set to where as soon as I move this, start going up like you would if you're at 4 milliamps and say you went to 5, the valve should move. And then when you return to 4 milliamps, it should return to close. So I'm gonna go there. And then right now, I know that valve is closed. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stroke it up. And if I were you doing it electronically, I would put 12 milliamps. Then at 12 milliamps, what you wanna see is there's a line in the middle of this cam. You want to see that line pretty close, if not spot on, to the roller. That would indicate exactly 50% open. And then from there, you want to go all the way to 20. For me, it's 30 PSI. Yours, 20 milliamps. All right, so now I want to verify that I'm completely open. And my line is lined up exactly from that cam to that roller assembly. And with that being lined up, I know my valve is completely open. Everything's perfect. Now you can start coming back down. Now, so as long as your linearity is good going up and there's nothing left to do. If your linearity is not good and say it's not hitting a set point, whether you're doing, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, so that's your 0, 25, 50, 75, 100, check it all the way up. If you got to make adjustments, you should honestly know how to do that. If you've ever messed with a pneumatic or electro-pneumatic positioner, that's manual, not a smart instrument. So say you get the 20 milliamps and the valve is not fully open. Then you need to increase your span. And in order to do that, come back to 0, so 4 milliamps. You'll break this screw loose. There's a screw on the end of here. You'll adjust it towards the positive. And then every time you do that, you adjust it towards the positive, you'll have to reset your 0. And you'll have to do that back and forth until you get it perfect. But other than that, everything is done. I'll show you the ball in the closed position. It's kind of hard to see in there, but you see the ball is in the perfectly closed position. And that's all. But sorry, this is kind of a makeshift video, but it's definitely a lot easier than trying to read a manual and figure it out. Anyhow, I hope this helps. If you got any questions, give me a shout. Thanks.